Well, hello once again, and welcome to the inner sanctum of Literary as Feck, where myself, Clive Davis, and him over there,
Nick.
we discuss books and such. And so this time we've got a double bill of.
This is because
Yes.
Clive thinks that this is too skinny a book for us to be allowed to talk about. So
Yes, yeah. So I chose Adolfo Bioy Casares,
maybe
The Invention of Morel, from 1940. And when it arrived, I was horrified to see that it's only 100 pages long. And I could just imagine Nick's smug little Irish face being all pleased that he could get away. And I thought,
yes.
I'm not having any of that.
I tend to do a little jig when these things happen.
Yes, I could just imagine, and you were spilling your Lucky Charms all over the place. Yep. So I thought, haha, no, I shall foil his plans to actually enjoy his leisure time and not be chained to our YouTube videos. So I'll make him read something else. In your face, Nick. So I was looking around. What could I double it with? I was thinking of maybe another Casares book, like Asleep in the Sun or something like that. But then I was poking about what I was specifically looking for, which I couldn't find. I don't know if it exists. I was thinking there might be a compendium, like best Argentinian science fiction, or short stories or something like that. Couldn't find anything like that, or at least not, easily available quickly via Kindle. So we ended up with Trafalgar from 1979 by Angelica Gorodisha, which I'm quite pleased because a last minute just, let's give that a go. It turned out to bear fruit, I think. But first, let's do Invention of Morel, a book that I was led to via Borges, of course, because
he phoned you up personally and said
he did. He did. He phoned me from beyond the grave.
Yeah.
I said, "Hey, Borges, you blind bastard, how's it going?" And Clive, you should read The Invention of Morel. You fucking bored Welshman, he said. And we rushed, and we had as we do. And then he hung up and went back to the netherworld, I guess. And I took his advice. So yeah, I believe Casares or Casares, I'm not sure, was a protege of Borges, right? And they collaborated on a lot of stuff together.
Yeah, the first thing they wrote together apparently was a pamphlet on the on yogurt, which I think is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a great read.
Yeah, they were both quite young. There's not as big an age gap between them as you might think. I think Borges is just a few years senior to however we say his name. Apparently he went.
Let's just say Adolfo.
Adolfo, that'll be easier.
Although apparently
he went by the middle name, apparently, however you say that.
Bioy.
Bioy, yeah. But anyway, Adolfo, yeah. So yes, they were more almost more contemporaries, except I think maybe Borges had gotten his literary start a little earlier, maybe.
Yeah, he also seems to have just been, in general, maybe a lot more prolific, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, Borges did put out a hell of a lot of stuff because it was clearly like a compulsion, really, wasn't it? Kind of saw the world through literature in a way.
Yes. Yeah.
So this is about a character, a man who
the fugitive, which I think is interesting.
The fugitive, yes.
That's all he's called apparently. In like whenever the book is talked about, he's just referred to as the fugitive because he never gives us his name.
Right, and we're not really quite sure. He seems to be maybe on the run for maybe some sort of political reasons. Maybe I'm getting the feeling, and yeah, he ends up shipwrecked on an
by choice, right? Because he's been given the death penalty, I think, and he's so he escapes somehow. His friends help him to escape from prison. He's on the run, and he basically finds out that there's an island that has this that it's believed is some sort of plague island, where some people went and built this kind of some stuff on it, and then and anyone who's visited there dies of a plague, so therefore nobody's going to go there. So this Sicilian who lives in Calcutta tells him he should head there. That's a place where you could hide out.
And I was looking it up on Wiki. Apparently, it's a Polynesian island. Although although you wouldn't. I mean, it doesn't really matter where it is.
No.
So he discovers this island, which apparently at first seems to be totally.
Can we just say that we're going to have to spoil this, and so therefore So to get ahead of that, can we also say that I would recommend, it's 100 pages, and for me it was a little bit slow going at the beginning, but when it started to pay off, it paid off huge dividends. I think this book made me think about things and connect things that I've already thought about before, but see them in a new way. And we'll talk about it when we get there. But
agreed.
Talk about this without ruining it. So
turn us off. Go away, read the book. It'll only take you like 2 hours, and then come back.
Okay.
Please come back.
We'll give everybody. Okay,
well, we're not gonna sit still for 100 minutes.
So that's what the pause button is for.
So anyway, so welcome back. And how was that? What do you think?
Cracking good read, eh?
Hey. So so he finds this deserted island, a seemingly deserted island. And on it is, I suppose it's what he calls the museum, right? Which is a large building, kind of, I don't know exactly, it seems like a big old chateau or something like that. It doesn't seem to have any specific function, although it does have things on display and stuff, I guess, which is why he refers to it as a museum, right? And he also quickly discovers like an engine room, and so he can like a generator, he can get running water and stuff like this. And also we'll get to the film version. Watching the film version, it struck me as like, is it his fault? Does he turn this on?
I think he does.
Dormant? I
think he does.
And then he's kind of is a victim of his own hubris. So anyway, he sets this thing up, and he's just kind of exploring the landscape in a bit of a I Am Legendy, quiet earth kind of way. Anything like that.
Yes.
There's something about that, isn't there? So, but then eventually it turns out that it is actually inhabited. The island seems
seemingly
to be inhabited.
Suddenly a bunch of people appear out of nowhere at a time when it doesn't make any sense for them to, because apparently like the seas are choppy. He doesn't understand how these people could have gotten there, but suddenly the island seems to be there's a bunch
they
of
appear out of thin air, right?
French speaking like folk.
Kind of very jazz age, kind of like, they're like kind of doing some ballroom dancing and listening to Dixieland jazz or something, or
and they're all flappers, kind of.
Flapper. It's funny as well. There's something about, I don't know what it is, but there's something, whenever I see those kind of people of that era, like enjoying themselves and doing the Charleston and all that stuff, there's something like, again, it's a retrospect thing, right? Because they're like between 2 world wars. They seem like particularly foolish. Like, you know what I mean? There's something like seems really kind of decadent and totally understandable, of course. After a world war, of course, you would want to.
And the Spanish flu as well, right? I mean, which is
and there's something about the flapper look, as I have to admit, I do like a good flapper.
Oh yes, yes. Well, I mean, there's a reason why Louise Brooks is on the front of the book as well.
Yes, you can fap to the flap, is what I'm saying.
Yes. But also, our author apparently was fairly obsessed with her, and that kind of feeds into, in a way, the idea of being so obsessed with an image, and with this image that's kind of short term, that you might want to insert yourself into said image.
Or into said Louise Brooks. Yes. yes, of course, for those who don't know, the star of Pandora's Box, right, and a major icon of silent cinema around the world, right? Like, I mean, people still reckon it, but certainly back then it would have been like, every world would have known who Louise Brooks is, right?
Yeah, in a way, she's credited with kind of inventing a more naturalistic form of acting because, you know, in the silent era, it was all very big, very theatrical, right? And she kind of was one of the first people to really look at, you know, micro expressions and things like that. But she also...
She'd be terrible at Saigon.
Yes, exactly. But no, she was certainly a cutie, but apparently, like, she didn't have a very long shelf life as an actor because kind of her alcoholism and other things got in the way. So, you know, there is a limited number of films she's in.
Yeah, well, that's part of the appeal as well, isn't it? Is she is that tragic figure, you know, like a Monroe or James Dean, or you know, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Anyway, so yeah,
people start going up and cutting the rug and doing a lot of dancing.
And he falls for one, right? Faustine.
Can't be a mistake either. The Faust kind of element.
Yeah, I was wondering about that, if that's even a real name. But yeah, so he kind of has a crush from afar, because he immediately hides as well. So he doesn't introduce himself.
Well, no, because he can't, because he's on the run and he's terrified that they may be at best they're a bunch of you know, holiday makers,
right? So they're a bunch of toffos, right? So
but again, he can't expose himself to them because he's afraid they'll sick the police up, or at worst,
they're speaking a different language as well,
right? So it does make those scenes wonderful in the movie when you know what's going on. There's some great scenes in the French version of him just like skulking around and freaking out and running away, and you're like, right, buddy, you're really using a lot of energy. You don't need to use, which is kind of great.
And after a while, he kind of tries to kind of make his move, right? Because seems to be a rival, and in the form of the titular Morel, right? And so we should mention that the book is narrated. It's his journal, right, of basically how he basically slowly found this stuff out, and so he decides to maybe kind of try and make contact, and is kind of puzzled that either everyone's very rudely ignoring him, or there's something not quite right. And
so he makes a few attempts. He builds her this little garden that he hopes she'll notice and fall for him that way, and she completely ignores it. He at one point just directly yells at her, "I love you," and she consistently just blanks him all of the time, right? And it sends him into these paroxysms of despair, and that stuff is great. I mean, should we now explain why this is happening? Because I think I want to unpack some.
Also, he can't seem to be able to occupy the same space as them. There's a few instances of him almost kind of getting like some sort of displacement or like a shock or something from them.
Bowled over.
Like, oh, what the fuck happened there, right?
And he also can't turn light switches, and if doors are locked or closed, he can't open them, even though they should be openable, and they may have been opened, 20 minutes before.
Right. And he starts noticing weird things that they didn't do in the film, oddly enough. Both the films are
there's the second son. The second son shows up in. There's two.
Does it?
It does show up in the French film. Yes, but yes, at certain points there's a second sun in the sky, or the weather doesn't match what's going on with the people. They're not responding normally to. And
plus as well, people seem to be repeating the same conversations.
At an interval of about a week, he starts noticing he's seen this conversation before, this interaction.
So basically, the big reveal is, well, I mean, it's kind of difficult because I'm not sure if I totally understand the science of it, because it's more, rather than a hard SF idea, it's more a kind of it's an abstraction, isn't it? It's an excuse to kind of look at things in a certain way. It's metaphorical. But it is vaguely kind of scientific enough, especially for 1940. I would have thought that it counts as, it is definitely a science fiction novel, right? But it's not necessarily what people would expect from a science.
It's not space opera by any stretch of the imagination. It's a much more.
So it turns out to be So Morel,
he explains them to everybody because he pulls everyone, all the assembled guests, he pulls them into this room at one point and says to them, "Okay, guys, I have to tell you something. Don't be mad."
right.
Basically, and he starts by using film and music as two examples of where we can record the image of something, and we can record the sound of something, and we have these different technologies to project. And if you think at the time it's made, it's kind of possibly before sound cinema, or just at the beginnings, right? So he's kind of saying we got
10 years after, but
okay, we got phonographs, but I'm thinking more like because they're 10 years, as we discover,
they're
previous.
Yes, maybe. Yes, yes, but then for those characters, yes.
1925, right? So he kind of explains that yes, we have these technologies, and and they can only take us so far. We can record images and see them again, but what if we could record more than that? What if we could record sound? What if we could record emotion? What if we could record in some way a physical presence?
Because it's all waves, right? It's all waves of various stripes, right? So
if we could record it and then project it. So the thing is that it's a true, I think in the time I'm sure it's a truly novel idea. It's been used extensively ever since. I mean, things like the holodecks on Star Trek are exactly this idea, right? Like some kind of photonic light based, but it has a solidity to it.
Right.
Totally immersive experience, right?
Well, I mean, we are kind of getting slowly.
Well, I think I'd like to unpack that when we talk about what this becomes, because in a way, this thing becomes very much like these sorts of AI porno machines where you can plug in anyone's face into them, or get ChatGPT to be some famous Hollywood actor telling you. So there's a lot of stuff that's really timely about, I think, what the story is all about.
Well, I wouldn't know anything about that, Nick, and I certainly have never visited RachelRileyFakes.com or anything like that.
Yes.
So, yes.
He explains, I've been recording you secretly.
Yes, he's installed some kind of device, I guess, which, has been capturing them and then projecting them, but also in that way, I suppose, that people used to think that photographs stole your soul or something like that. It's kind of displaced the real them, right? This was the one thing I wasn't quite sure about, like, where did the real them go, right? And then it turns out that there's some part of the process does actually literally corrode you, right? Because his hand, he gets his he sticks his hand in some sort of projection from the device, and he ends up just literally starting to rot. Right. So I'm guessing this device consumes them and then just spits them out, I guess.
Yeah. Well, so one of the guests, when he starts to explain what he's done, one of the guests freaks out because he's like, he knows of this set of experiments, and he knows that it's had disastrous results on the people who were recorded previous to this, right? That it sets up a kind of a plague, which slowly all your hair falls out and you turn kind of redder and redder, and there's it's like it gives you a kind of some sort of cancerous illness, right? And so it becomes pretty clear that they're all dead. That's how the rumor about this being Plague Island gets started, is that their boat, after it leaves, they're found kind of floating in the water, all seriously fucked up and dying or dead.
Right. But it's interesting because it's like, because at first you're not sure, or maybe they died of natural, and the things but no, it killed them. It killed them. It stole them, which is I mean.
And Morel knows this. So Morel is committing suicide over a woman, because that's the other thing that comes. Like, he is obsessed with Faustine, because this is our narrator's great worry, because our narrator is obsessed with Faustine, and he's very worried that Morel is also obsessed with her. And slowly, as things turn out, that's true. And Morel appears to have decided to kill himself and her, because he can't have her and all of their friends in this bizarre, and to create this eternal week of flapperdom.
Right. And that, of course, the Faust thing comes in there as well, because he has quite literally sold their souls to the machine, right?
Yeah. And the machine also, I think, is great. The machine works. This is something else he figures out as time goes on. The machine actually works via tidal energy.
Right.
So it's a very early eco kind of like but then Morel has made some miscalculations with the tides apparently, and so there's longer gaps between when they reappear and don't appear and so on, and that ends up screwing with our narrator because at certain points he gets trapped. Right, there's one very effective part where he gets trapped in a room where the wall has come back in again, that he'd made this hole in, and he can't get out, and he nearly ends up.
Because everything's layered. There's different layers of reality.
Basically, yeah. So I mean, in a way, it ends up being yes. It's this kind of bizarre, grand sort of shared suicide, and it's interesting too because at a certain point, everyone seems to realize maybe this is what's happened, and then they all just go along with it because
yeah, well, it's not so much suicide; it's murder, really.
Yeah, murder suicide, I guess. Yeah,
but no, so it's a fascinating conceit and a kind of. Yeah,
well, there's two things
about this book that just in a way it's extremely, it's a very simple story, right? Like there's nothing really convoluted about it. Like it's
yes,
but there's something about that stripped down nature that also gives it this oddly enough Borgesian kind of like it's potentially endless.
I think it's extremely deep. But you're right. It seems
very
really shallow.
Yeah, but it's not
really shallow. But it's not at all. It's got like terrifyingly, hidden depths. So a couple of things that really jumped out at me the first time I read it, and then when I watched the film again, it works the same way. So there's an episode of Rick and Morty in the very first season where the characters end up in this kind of like multi-level sort of like the Matrix kind of a thing, right? Where it's like it's a computer simulation, right? And they don't know they're inside this thing. And they get separated so that the smart characters are off somewhere else, and kind of Jerry, this kind of stupid dad, ends up also in there. He's not supposed to be there. So the aliens who are running the simulation are like, oh shit, well, just turn his down to the lowest possible setting so we don't use up too much bandwidth. So they set his to like 1 or whatever, right? So it becomes like a really ultra simple, but he's kind of so dim he doesn't quite catch on that that's what's going on, right? So everyone is just saying the same thing, or they're repeating, like a catchphrase or whatever. And it becomes so clear that he's his own worst enemy because people just say yes to him, and he gets in his own head all of the time. And kind of like, so initially he takes it, like he gets promoted at work and so on, and his wife seems to be really like, into him. And then slowly it turns because he can't believe that he's having success, and he starts to second guess everything, and then he ends up like losing it all. But it's just him. No one's saying anything other than yes to him, but it's all going on. And this whole part at the beginning where he goes to her and he's like, I love you, or he makes the garden, and he's like heartbroken and devastated because he's ignoring him, but she's not aware of his existence at all. It's this, or like at one point he's like, they're all police spies, and in another moment he's like, well, maybe I'm invisible, or maybe they're aliens who lack sight. Like he's all of this mental gymnastics to explain to himself why they're ignoring him. I found all that stuff really believable because I have an uncomfortable and sad history as somebody who was a bit stalkery in my teenage years, and somebody who had built an elaborate fantasy world out of a girl who I didn't know at all.
The garden did make me think of you, I have to say.
I'm not surprised. It made me think of me awkwardly, right? And I just kept thinking about this person who, like, I would take a glance as being like this or that, you were reading stuff into that's not there because you're so desperate, you're projecting all of this shit. So you're at 1 second you're insanely angry because you've been snubbed, but this girl has no idea that she snubbed you, and then the next moment you're filled with joy because you're sure that now she's noticed you and this will lead to something.
Right.
And it's all only happening inside your head, and I think that's done really well.
And the other thing he does as well is another very kind of teenage kind of lovesick boy thing as well. He kind of martyrs himself, right? Like when he finds out there's people in the museum, he doesn't just go and like sleep like somewhere dry. he goes and sleeps in the shallows and kept woken up by like the tide. I thought that was kind of funny. Like, yeah, you can just go that dry patch over there. It's no, it's like
he must torture himself.
Yes, yeah.
And then the other thing that
right,
that I really like is so at a certain point, right, he figures it all out. He figures out, oh, hang on, they're not really here. They're probably all dead. This is a recording from 10 years ago. They're just ghosts, basically. And I can't let go of this woman. I'm so in love with her. I'm so obsessed with her that not only will I choose to live here amongst these ghosts, to be close to this person who's not even here, but I'm going to now kill myself in order to insert myself 10 years later into this recording so that it will appear for all intents and purposes to another outsider coming in as though I've been here all along. So he finds these moments. It's like those videos you see, you know, the comedians used to do where they cut themselves into an interview and ask questions, you know, and then the original answer is still there, but the nuance has been changed slightly.
And the thing is, he doesn't know her at all. He knows nothing about her. It's all in his everything he's created. It also reminds me of that. There's that Red Dwarf episode, Better Than Life.
Yes.
Where Ringo just fucks everything up through you know, just his own his own tortured kind of lack of self-worth and so no, there's a lot of it's funny as well. Apparently it was a inspiration for the TV series Lost as well, which I can kind of see the island thing, but I never really watched Lost, so I don't know if it goes beyond that at all. I don't know if it goes into any specifics. I don't know if you watched.
No, I didn't watch it. Jennifer, actually, my wife would know better than me. She did watch, I think, all of Lost, but yeah, I can see that. And there was something else that it also vague. Well, I was thinking like The Prisoner in a strange way as well. Just slightly. There's something about
that's the thing, is that when you get to the end of The Prisoner, again, spoilers. There's a little bit, isn't there? There's a little bit of what exactly is real and what is potentially in my own head. And no, I mean, there's, like you said, it's interesting to read something like this from 1940. But
we're so much closer to being able to do it now. That's what's terrifying.
Yeah, but also just having like 80 plus years of things clearly influenced by it. Maybe sometimes non-directly, but it still seems really, really, really fresh, doesn't it?
There's lots of, actually, it's funny, it's because, you know, Star Trek dealt with this quite a bit, right? Because they had this holodeck. So there's a lot of this kind of questioning what happens when you can enter an immersive reality that's so convincing and that caters to your broken soul, that why would you ever want to leave it, you know? And we have seen this drift, I would say, in the last 30 years, right? Where, you know, from this kind of like guys married to their waifu pillows and, you know, who have seceded from any attempt to like deal with real people, whether, or, you know, real women, real men, just like, no, I would rather live in my little hermetically sealed control.
Because now it's so much richer and close to reality than it ever has been before.
It's not just a collection of magazine pages, you know, under the carpet, you know, in your bedroom anymore. Now it can be this,
and also gone is the sense of shame or embarrassment about it as well. Like people are a lot more upfront about that stuff now. Do you know what I mean? Like
you're right. No, they're. I mean, I guess it makes being a hikikomori a better experience, I suppose, if you could just seal yourself off in your bedroom closet and then live a full and rich fake life or fantasy life somehow.
But also, I suppose it could have the effect that if everyone's like that, then when you go outside, you don't have to worry about interacting with people because they just ignore you. So it could have the, you know, it could actually go out.
Wars.
But no, this is a superb little novel, isn't it? I would highly recommend, because I suspect there's quite a lot of people out there, because it's not necessarily absolutely totally in the you know, you wouldn't necessarily find it in a bookshop those don't exist anymore, but you know, it's not in the science fiction category.
I was going to say it's not in the canon. It's not of science fiction novel.
And this is a New York Review of Books Classics as well. So it's it would kind of be, I think people might consider it like a bit more highfalutin than, you know, than more kind of conventional science fiction. But SF fans would get a massive thrill out of this, I think, because it's like another piece of the puzzle in a way, isn't it? When you're looking at foundational kind of stuff, I think this definitely is foundational SF. And even if you don't care about that, it's just a fucking great little read. It's a fast read. No, I couldn't recommend this highly enough.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, absolutely.
Before you open your big fat gob and start talking about the film versions, Nick.
Yes, yeah.
I would also like to. So you didn't get a chance to watch last year Marienbad, right?
No, which is supposedly inspired by this.
Well, it's definitely worth bringing in at this one because this is something. Yeah. Well, you don't. So I'm not going to go into too much detail, but for those who don't know, last year at Marienbad is, you know, one of those films that it's like one of those. It's like probably one of the first things that like the Criterion Collection put out or something like that.
It's French New Wave, right?
Yeah, and it's a film with just an astonishing reputation, right? Alain Resnais, I guess, Alain Robe Grillet screenplay, Coco Chanel costumes. It's all very gorgeous and French and black and white, and you know, and it's one of those films like I remember seeing it. So it's basically about a bunch of characters in a chateau, and they seem to be like statues almost that occasionally come to life and interact and stuff, but then they just freeze. And then they're just endlessly walking about this carriage, if this sounds familiar at all.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And again, there's a main character who's trying to convince a woman that they've met before, and it's all, you know, extremely surreal and abstract and looks absolutely gorgeous. The camera works just amazing. It's beautiful, black and white. But it's one of it's oddly enough, it reminded me this time watching it. It's like a classy Jess Franco film or something like that. It has a vibe of the more dreamy kind of Franco film, you know.
I assume fewer zoom-ins on
proceeds, yeah, less of that, yes. It's a shame. But but anyway, I remember seeing this film for the first time like when I was a teenager, and I was like, c'est magnifique, you know, like I really loved it, and then watched it again a few years ago and found it kind of just maddening, right? Because it is just people having the same conversations again and again and again, right, wondering, and it's super French New Wave, right? This time, I mean, I don't know, it's a film I think kind of changes with you, and I oddly enough, I'd be kind of quite happy to rewatch it every 10 years or something to see how my relationship to it has changed, you know. But this time, with the reason it was worth revisiting it in the wake of reading the book is, I mean, there's no way this was not massively influenced by Invention of Morel. I mean, it is pretty much...
It just dispenses with the science fiction explanation.
Exactly, but it does have, there's a few bits in it which are still quite impressive, where they have these sudden smash cuts, because it's all extremely kind of hypnotic and you know, very slow paced, and then all of a sudden there'll be like a smash cut to like a woman screaming at nothing in particular, whatever. But it's really jolting, and it gives you that slight. It's like almost turns into a horror film every now and then, and you could argue that it's sort of a haunted house film in the same way that parts of Citizen Kane play like a haunted house film, right? So I'm always fascinated by that, like the Forgotten Horrors books talk about it, and of course they get it from Lovecraft, that notion of horror where you find it, right? Like where something isn't, you know, it's not full on like a horror experience. And I think Morel is kind of like SF where you find it, or, you know. So yeah, no, last year at Marienbad, it's very interesting to consider it in you know, it's almost like I would say it's the first unofficial adaptation of Morel, because it comes before the other two films, but it's not often, if ever, presented that way, right? So I feel as if I've come across a secret or something, you know. Yeah. But anyway, in 1967, there was the first official French version, which is a TV movie, I believe. And you watched most of this?
Almost all of it, yes. Yeah. And it hews pretty closely to
It does.
The text of the book, and it does so. Unlike the first 35 minutes or whatever of the Italian version, which I watched, it starts right away with a voiceover narrator who more or less gives us the first person that we get in the novel, right?
So this is Alan Sowry is our main guy in this one. Juliet Mills plays.
He's a little bit better put together than the fucking mess that is whoever the guy is who plays him in the Italian.
Oh, I love the guy, Giulio Borossi. Yeah, but
he's almost, you know, I was thinking to myself, you know, who would have been really good in this role too, although he's just too big to take seriously in the kind of more pathetic moments, is George Eastman.
Fuck, man, it's weird watching not this one, watching the Italian version, because he gets really super disheveled looking, and he's got these.
That's what I'm thinking. Like,
red eyes. I was thinking, yes. George, and then I was thinking, I really went off. I was thinking about, because what would work would be an Anthropophagus, Morel's Invention mashup.
Yeah, agreed.
Like a Greek island. That would be amazing. That could potentially be the best film ever made. Another one for our roster of AI films that we're going to make with Darren, right? So stick that on the docket. Yes, Alan Sowry as well. I didn't know much about him, but I discovered a film later on in his filmography, which I think we're going to have to watch, Nick. See if you can find. I managed to find a copy without subtitles. Okay. I'll grab it, but if you can find one with, that'll be even better. 1978's E Porno Zombie.
Okay. Yeah. I'll look into that.
Seems
for sure.
to be a hardcore science fiction zombie film.
Wow. Okay.
Also known in English as Starship Eros, but not to be confused with the other Starship Eros, the American one. Yeah, anyway, so there we go. It's interesting how we find a new. Yeah. But no, he's so directed by Claude-Jean Bonnardard, who made a film that looks really interesting, actually, from 1963 called Ballad for a Hoodlum. I was looking it up, the plot synopsis. It sounds almost like a like a transporter or drive or something.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sounds really interesting. So I'll have a look about if I can find that as well. But yeah, no, like you said, very, very, very close to the novel.
Yeah.
Not as much as the Italian one, but also the other thing we didn't mention in here as well, I suppose there is elements of it's Groundhog Day as well, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, because there's that repetition of certain scenes, seen from slightly different angles. I mean, I think you know, Juliet Mills makes a pretty good Faustine.
Yeah. Alan Sowry isn't stupid enough to sleep in the water in this version.
Nope.
I will not do that.
The place itself looks quite cool. It's funny. There's a little bit of crossover between the two. Actually, they both kind of this Polynesian look about.
Is it a set? Do you think in this one? Because it looks.
It seems like it's a set.
You know what it reminded me of? Oddly enough, like if it had been toned down in black and white and you only had whatever 65 lines or whatever, it reminded me of the Daleks serial, the first one, like when they're Scarrow and there's like a swamp, or there's something very chiaroscuro or something, except it's a color, right? But yeah.
No, I have to say, I thought they did a pretty good job of putting across a story that's kind of difficult to put across in a way. But yeah, I haven't seen the end, but what I've seen so far, I've enjoyed a lot. So
no, it is very, very good, and I was very impressed with it. However, it has to be said, the real deal is
the
Italian one from 1960. For me,
as I said, it's a bravura choice to not handhold your audience at all for the first. I think it's literally 35 to 37 minutes that has no dialogue. 32. Yeah. Okay, at all. Yeah. Like just him exploring the island in a very kind of Planet of the Apesy, as you
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
Last Man on Earth kind of away.
Louis Buñuel's version of Robinson Crusoe, I think, might play like that if I remember correctly. Like no one says anything. Or is it another version I'm thinking of? Anyway, but yeah, Giulio Brogi is the star of this one. I really like him. He was in I didn't know much about him. I looked it up. He's also in Bertolucci's The Spider's Stratagem, which is a version of a Borges short story as well. And directed by Emilio Greco. This one, written by Andrea Barbato and Emilio Greco. This Barbato guy,
John Steiner shows up as well.
Well, yeah, we'll mention that. But I just wanted to say that this Barbato guy also seems to have written episodes of a 1967 miniseries about Caravaggio, starring Gian Maria Volante.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
But yes, John Steiner.
Yeah, of all
Morel,
people, is Morel. Yes,
I'm guessing because you're, as stupid as I am.
Yep.
I'm just thrilled.
Of course,
that John Steiner was Morel. And we got, of course, Anna Karina, right? Godard's muse as Faustine. Shot beautifully shot as Eastman color, shot by Silvano Ippoliti, who shot lots of stuff for Tito Brass. That's another Tito Brass, including Caligula. And also shot that film I rather like from the mid-80s, Amazonia, White Slave.
Right.
Which is a really underrated little jungle film. I think I really like.
Well, the beautiful use of the location.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, some of those caves,
the wind.
Yes, the desolation, the feeling of desolation. Those strange shaped kind of rocks and kind of caves.
It's in Malta. That's where it was shot. This film totally absorbed me and hypnotized me. And this is the one. This is the version for all time.
For all time.
I think it really is a fantastic. I think it's like a bit of an unheralded classic.
So here's a question, because I've only watched it up until the point where he starts to talk to her, and then as I realized I didn't have subs. So does it give his internal monologue? Do we? So it's just through. It's just done through dialogue. Wow!
All the way through it. We piece together from him overhearing what other people are talking about, and of course Morel has his speech when he introduces the concept. And not once does it. So
we do then lose some of that, like his weird, surely, like the various explanations he comes up with, or
but he plays it so well, I think. Like,
that you can read.
I think this is a fantastic, seriously good adaptation. I rate this very highly. I was thinking as well, when he turns up and everything is covered in that thick layer of dust, he's got the biggest library yet.
He's got what?
He's got the biggest library yet. I'm surprised you didn't get that. It's a
sorry.
cheeky little fall reference.
Okay. All right.
No, I mean that's it. Just it's a fantastic, and I think it. It's like either read the book first, watch this. It doesn't really make a difference. I think they both stand up. Either way around, you do it really. But this is on a new entry on my list of like seriously fucking cool films. Right? Like, watch this again.
Okay. And I think you're right. I do think a mashup with Anthropophagus makes absolute sense, especially considering the fact that, like, after you've gone through the process, apparently your hair does kind of fall out and you do become some sort of monster, right? In your last moments before you pass on. So there's lots of overlap there, I think.
And it's okay that we don't have George Eastman anymore, because of course we can use Joe Wilkinson.
There we go.
Yeah,
we're good to go.
I'll get him on the phone.
And Rachel Riley can play Faustine, and we're all good.
Perfect. Right. So then, what are we doing now? I'm confused. Oh yes, that's right.
Trafalgar.
Yes, we're done, right? We've done all the Morel.
We've done all Morel, yeah.
Right. Okay. Yes. So Trafalgar. Yeah. Okay. So
this author championed by your favorite science fiction author Ursula K. Le Guin, who apparently is responsible for the translation of some of her work and also for publishing it. Basically, her publishing house is
there's another one that's been translated, Culpa Imperial, right? Which I'm keen to read actually on the strength of this one. So Trafalgar from 1979, recently put out by Small Beer Press in an English translation. We have the Kindle, right? And this is Angelica Gorodisha, I guess. Is that about right?
I think so, sure.
I know why I'm looking at you. You're as clueless as I am about these things. But you have a modicum of Spanish, right? So
un poco, but not much.
What you call me?
There you go.
I am Pinguero. Don't you know I am not the poco?
And we've lost anyone who is interested in anything Latin American, South American. Sorry. But anyway.
So yes, it's been a little bit since I read this. And
it's a collection of short stories too.
Yes, I might need memory jogging, but from what I remember, it's everything's filtered through. I suppose it's Angelica Gorodisha herself, or like herself projected into the story.
Yes.
And basically, she has an acquaintance, the Trafalgar of the title, and he seems to be some sort of
interstellar salesman.
Yes, basically, he's a bit of he's Del Boy,
pretty much,
future, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah. So he
finds star system hops and then sells stuff to people off the back of a lorry.
Yes, that they don't have in that particular place, right? So there's a huge variety of worlds out there. And basically he sits down and he spins these yarns, these shaggy dog stories to our kind of main character, and who, against her better judgment, just can't get enough of them, right? Like she's like quite frustrated by
he's a very circumlocutive way of telling a story too.
Yes, and her inability to just like ignore him, like, God damn it, he's done it again. He sucked me in, right? And
every story takes either 7 or 8 cups of coffee to tell, which is very it's a pattern, right? And
they seem to take all day, right? So they'll meet in a cafe or something, and then nightfall is okay, we better take this. We'll have dinner and we'll continue. And he's not to be second guessed, right? So whenever she kind of tries to, yes, you got the damsel in distress, and because he's always kind of sleeping with intergalactic women and stuff, but it's all no, and like it's never. He always has a little dodge, right? It's never quite.
Or she'll try to hurry him up and say, like, do you have to describe in minute detail this woman's bedroom or whatever? And he's like, yes. And then he will describe in minute detail the hideous decor. But
it's, I mean, I suppose, like you said, it's a series of shots. So they're kind of interconnected, but it doesn't really matter. But I think what it is about this one, more than anything else, it's just the wealth of imagination, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like there's one of the worlds he goes to, like, dead people just hang around.
This is the one of all of them. This is the one that I think may be the best. I think it's truly an incredible conceit.
It's a great. You could snip it for like a compilation or anthology, right? It's
absolutely. There's a few others that I really like too, and we'll talk about them too. But this is the one. This is the pick of the litter for me. The concept basically is Night of the Living Dead, but it's like Night of the Boring Dead.
Right.
And it's almost the same thing because it's like some sort of cosmic rays have made it so that people who should die don't really die. They're dead officially.
When some publisher pays us millions and millions of dollars to put out the Literary as Feck best short story collection, which is going to happen any day now.
Oh yeah.
This is could be one we put in there, right?
This one, something out of that what's his face Grey book where everyone's constantly getting flayed alive and cooked in gigantic pots and stuff. But yeah, so basically this planet, I also love that this is the story too, where he initially goes to another planet full of like kind of practical jokers, and they all have incredible names like the Super Fat Empress and stuff like that.
Right.
And they love a good Jape and a good Josh. And he gets sent to this planet. He gets told it's as a practical joke. Oh, you can sell tons of shit on that planet. So he's like, oh, that's great. He flies off and finds out that basically the literal weight of the dead has completely suffocated the society because your ancestors aren't dying. Your great 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 grandfather is hanging around and telling you like, oh, I don't like that new thing. Oh no, I don't. Oh, we can't do that. That's So basically, you can't do anything new that they've because it'll upset your ancestors who are still
What's he
physically
doing
dead.
playing the Penguin on Batman? He's a respected actor.
Exactly. It's my granddad angry about everything. It's brilliant because there's an element, obviously, like anything, there's an element of that right now in our world, right? I mean, let's face how much of our world, I mean, you live in Japan, right? How much of politics for the last 30, 40 years has been geared towards the elderly and appeasing them and, I mean, we just narrowly avoided what in the US, an 80-year-old and a 78-year-old going head to head for, leader of the free world. Yeah, so in this case, I think it's just amazing. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, no, it is definitely one of the better ones. I mean, towards the end of the book, maybe the last one or two stories showed signs of it kind of running out of steam a little bit, I would say. So it's not quite in its entirety, an absolute classic, but it's definitely it's playful as well, right? So there's deliberately unpronounceable long names for characters, and they never shorten it. Like they use it again and again and again. Like there's a little bit of Hitchhiker's Guide in there as well, I think. Like, if you like things that take SF conventions and fuck around with them, and so it's very, but you can tell it's not sneering, right? It's not from a it's not from a place or someone who thinks, oh, science fiction is stupid, It's someone who actually likes the material and is just kind of, it's like a sandbox. They're messing around with it, and it's a good idea. It's exactly what this kind of thing should be, right? Someone's come up with an idea and they're like, intergalactic Del Boy comes back, tells Shaggy Dog stories, 7 or 8, 9 short stories, put in, bam. Like that's all it needs to be, right? I'd really love, I'm very surprised there isn't a screen adaptation. I would really like to see a mini-series maybe doing each story, right? That would be cool.
One that I quite like too is there's one where he goes to a planet where basically it's like there's he uses a specific Kurt Vonnegut phrase, right? But basically that time is out of whack. But if you live on the planet, you're okay. But if you're an outsider, you experience kind of everything everywhere all at once in a way. So like every day he wakes up, he's in a different time period.
That story was
fantastic. Planet. Right?
Like I was trying to get my head round the logistics of it. No, that story is amazing. Like, and what's really amazing about it as well is you can keep track of it. I don't quite know how she's pulled that off, but I totally understood where I was at all, except when I wasn't supposed to, because I was supposed to be confused. But like when it wrapped up, I was like, that's what I mean. There's a wealth of imagination in these stories, right? There's just a whole bunch of.
Well, what I love about that one is it's also an explanation basically for déjà vu. Is the idea that in some way we have a sensory apparatus that makes us aware of the alternate timelines that we could have experienced, or like that we do experience time out of whack in some way, and that déjà vu is a little moment of us.
Yeah, no, it's a fascinating. It's all. I mean, the stuff like that. It's bordering on almost being philosophical, right? Like no, it's a fine little collection, and
there's another one too where he basically goes to. It's kind of a time travel story, but not. He goes to an Earth-like planet that's basically has equivalents to it's the one where basically he helps them discover America, but using his they
cross in like 5 minutes or something, right?
Yes, and then he kind of affects, which reminded me a bit of there's a Philip K. Dick story who is name dropped, I noticed more than once in the collection of stories. Him and Porto Maltese is also name dropped in a couple of the stories, right?
That's the thing as well. The other thing is, it's a very hard thing to pull off this. Usually when people just wear their influences on their sleeves like that, it can get kind of annoying and fanboy, right? But in this case, it doesn't. It's just
Somehow work.
yeah. It's not. It didn't irritate me in the slightest. It was yeah.
It reminded me that there's a
I
story
wonder-
called Doctor Futurity by Philip K. Dick,
Right.
where he kind of invents this idea that Doctor Who has used to great effect ever since the fixed point in time that can't really be altered, right? That
Right.
things will always end up unfolding, and anyway, but it also is about it's about 1492. That story is also about 1492.
Yeah. No, it's like I do wonder how well read this is outside the Spanish, and actually even in the Spanish speaking world. I'm not sure. I mean, it seems to be if you're an Argentine SF fan, you're probably aware of Trafalgar.
Right.
But I'm not sure if they're actually reading it in Spain and Mexico,
Right.
and,
Right.
Chile. I don't know about that. It could be just, oh, look, kind of, because there might be a paucity of that stuff. It's like, oh, let us celebrate our, we've got Morel in this, and that. I mean, I'm sure there's more out there, but
Right.
it seems like that, at least approaching it from the English language point of view, because nothing's been translated, right? So, so I do wonder how, because this translation is relatively recent, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, if I'd have just tried to decide to do this a few years ago, maybe we might not even have been able to do it, unless we both suddenly studied Spanish.
Right. Yes, unlikely. Yeah, we our Duolingo accounts suddenly took off. Yeah. Anyway, there was one other one I think, or the very first one is kind of funny because that's the one where he basically there's some planet of kind of the ultra matriarchs or whatever, and the queens have sex like once a year or something like that as part of a ceremony, but it's with like a projection thing, like similar to actually Morel in a way.
Right.
He ends up stumbling in and he's dressed as Mandrake the magician, who apparently
he doesn't realize that he's been turned into a fantasy, right? He doesn't.
Yes.
Like, wow, this woman's really hot for me, but it's like no,
right.
just a warm body on which to project this, and no, that's a really good story, and it kind of sets the scene for it as well, doesn't it? No, it's a fantastic little collection. Yeah, I mean, check it out. I mean, how expensive? How expensive?
Would make a great Netflix.
Yeah, it would. It would.
Series like that.
How expensive is the Kindle? Is like under $10 or something, right?
Yeah,
cheapest chip.
Well worth the money. Well worth the time. So
there we go, and we'll be back with some more feckin' literary stuff next time.